Hi, good afternoon. This is Jill Trotterman with Feeding the Family, streaming live on Santa Cruz Voice. Where can you find a place that is creating the next generation of thinkers, creators, and problem solvers? One wonder-filled experience at a time. A space that transforms a child's curiosity into lifelong learning through guided play and hands-on discovery. An environment with over 5,000 square feet of interactive exhibits. Well, today we are going to discuss such a place, and that is called the Santa Cruz Children's Museum of Discovery, a hub where kids can explore, imagine, learn, and create through the power of play. So welcome, the Mod crew.
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having us on Feeding the Family.
You're so welcome. So in the studio today, I've got Bonnie Keet and Patrice Keet. We have Emily
Jacobson,
and Heaven Reagan. These are three past, well, we'll have them introduce themselves. Yeah. So let's start with Bonnie Keet.
All right. Hi, Jill. Thanks for having us today. So nice to talk to all of your listeners for Feeding the Family. I'm Bonnie Keet. I was one of the original founders, along with my aunt Patrice Keet and Uncle Bob Keet. We started the Santa Cruz Children's Museum of Discovery back in 2012. We kind of got the idea going. And that's who I am, one of the founders and one of the original rabble-rousers.
Right, and so I'm really curious, and our listeners want to know, especially with Patrice, who's one of the founders, what was the inspiration for creating a museum? It's a big endeavor to take on.
Yeah, thank you, Jill, for having us.
For sure.
It is a big endeavor, and it was kind of a gutsy move. I was at the Bay Area Discovery Museum in Sausalito with my 3-year-old granddaughter, Harper. And I looked around and I thought, wow, why don't we have something like this in Santa Cruz? We have fabulous weather, all kinds of creative people. So I started thinking about it on my way home, and Bonnie happened to be over visiting, and my husband Bob, we were sitting around at dinner, and I said, hey, I've got this idea about starting a children's museum. What do you think? We jumped on it, and within an hour, we started making a list of possible board members.
And then Bonnie came into you got looped in, I guess, huh? So your aunt, Patrice, said, oh, we have this fabulous idea. Can you please help make it happen?
Yes.
Is that pretty much it? And fundraise for it and find the building and all the fun things that go along with it?
Right. We had to become very resourceful and expert in a lot of things that we weren't currently expert in. But it was really fun. The first thing that we did was... two things. We've started firing on all fronts at once. One thing, after Bob and Patrice had this great idea and invited me to join them in creating it, was that we talked to the community. We went out to Santa Cruz and we said, who's doing this work in this space? Who's really addressing enrichment and access for the children in our community? And we started with the obvious choices. We spoke with the Santa Cruz Museum of Art History and Nina Simon, who was very supportive of the idea. That was one of our most fun coffees. We went out to, I think it was Lulu Carpenter's, and we sat with Patrice and myself and her son Kevin, because why not bring the whole family in? Kevin is a doctor, and somehow that felt incredibly relevant to a children's museum. But we had this great coffee with Nina, and she couldn't have been more supportive about the concept. We went to the Museum of Art History. We went over the hill to the Museum of Tech. I think we even met with Long Marine Lab. We tried to hit all of the local museums to see who's doing this work in this space. There was a children's museum down in Monterey at the time. I think it was called MOM. And Museum of Monterey, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. We went down and visited that. But one of my favorite things was that Patrice and I then just got a wild hair and we went on the road. We went around the country and we visited children's museums from Brooklyn to Pittsburgh, all around California. Do you remember some of those fun times?
Phoenix was fabulous. And it was just great because we got the inside story on how of course, many of these had been very long established and were very well respected in their communities, but we talked to all the executive directors. We went to the Children's Museum convention, which I'm going to again this year as a consultant to the museum. And we really learned a lot. And as Bonnie said, we did community surveys. We really tried to do all kinds of things. And for the first 2 years, we did not have a location. So we had a van and went out and tried to make our as much exposure for the museum as possible, for the future museum.
Right, and when you're looking at all these museums, I'm sure the ideas are overwhelming. So when you're coming here to Santa Cruz, you had to find the location, which was pivotal, and that's a key part of your museum, is that right?
That is a big part of the museum, and it was a big part of the planning of the museum. But what we did first, after we talked to the people and we made sure that we weren't stepping on toes and that we had the support of the community and that this kind of a concept was viable, we actually did a feasibility study. And while we were doing a feasibility study, we simultaneously did the fun thing that Patrice was talking about, where we started to talk to people in the community to become our early board members. And if we have time, I'd like to take a minute to talk about some of those early board members, because the names and the people have been some of the shapers of Santa Cruz as it looks today. Very exciting group of people. Can I read this?
Yeah, and let's do that. And I forgot to preface this whole talk is the reason that Santa Cruz Voice is inviting all of the local or many local nonprofits into the radio studio to share their stories. So I think that's one of the most important things of a community, is to bring community together and to share our resources. And clearly you needed a board to create this massive endeavor. You couldn't do it all on your own. So Bonnie, tell us about these inspirational people from our town.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fun things, is to see how the members of the original board have gone on to shape Santa Cruz and to create some of the incredibly robust nonprofits that we have in our community now. So one of the big players in the beginning was Jenny Dolan, who owns Yoso Wellness. She stepped up with all of her energy and all of her contacts and was a major player when we first got going. We had Chris Sheridan, who was the Santa Cruz County Attorney. We had Eric Schmidt of Eric Schmidt Designs, who helped a lot with the architecture as we started to discuss what different spaces would look like. We have Monica Terrazas, who is one of the Terrazas are a very well-known political family in Santa Cruz. We had Jacob Martinez, and that name might ring a bell because he is the executive director and the founder of another incredibly impressive nonprofit who will be getting money, hopefully, through Santa Cruz Gives. It's one of their nonprofits as well, the Digital Nest. They've won many awards in, I think, nationwide. We had Michelle Williams, who was the executive director for Santa Cruz Art Council at the time. Mariah Roberts, who went on to start the Santa Cruz nonprofit County Park Friends. We had, and still have, Miguel Aznar, who is a scientist and has been a wonderful supporter of the museum the entire time we've been in operation. We had an intern who came to us from Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and she actually lived with Bob and Patrice and helped as kind of the go-to of everything. She was our knowledge base, she was our worker, she was our helper, our champion, and sometimes our therapist.
Yeah, she was great.
We had Shannon Lenz from Lenz Arts. I think people will recognize that name. And Joanna Doubleday from Doubleday Communications. Those are just some of the people who sat on our early board, but it was really an exciting time, and it's been really fun to watch how all of those people have gone on and started their own thing.
And what's also impressive is the number of people who stayed around. We have Jim Felich, Vicki Boriak, and Rhiannon Crane, who are still involved. Rhiannon is the executive director now. And when I look back, I realized that we could not have done it without some of those early people. We definitely could not have. From looking at spaces, I spent 2 years driving around. That was my hobby, looking for spaces, asking anybody that I could think of, could we house our idea in your space? And one day I was sitting with county executive director of business development, and she said, "Have you ever thought of Capitola Mall?" And I'm like, "Not really." Because we had thought of an outdoor space, which unfortunately we don't have, but hope to have in the future. And that afternoon, I went to Capitola Mall, met with them. They were very excited about having us. The Abercrombie and Fitch store had been empty for a while, 8,000 square feet, sound perfect. Met with my board the next day. We signed a contract, and within 3 months, we had retrofitted it and made it into a children's museum. So we've been fast-tracked. And generally, the average of getting a children's museum started is about 7 years.
I would imagine, I'm just thinking that you must have really created a great story to get all of those board members signed on and getting their checkbooks out, right?
Yeah. Yes.
To help start. Now, when you're creating a museum, one of the main things is like the themes, the exhibits, how you're going to attract people. And there are so many factors that are involved in that. What are some of the highlights of being in the museum for a child? Like, what are some of those early experiences for them? And how does your museum compare and contrast to all of those other museums that you explored in the United States? I couldn't even imagine how to narrow that down into a single space.
Ours is a very homegrown.
Okay.
Many of our exhibits are made by a team, including my husband, who has probably made 40 exhibits for the museum.
Okay.
And they started out as prototypes, meaning they weren't supposed to last. We were going to try them out on children, have children try them out. And many of them still exist today. And we're right now doing a campaign to raise money to upgrade exhibits for possibly a future move. But exciting anecdote was we were ready to move in, and we had no idea how many people would come to our opening day. It was around Halloween. We had done a lot of advertising. We had 2,000 people lined up in the Capitola Mall with stanchions along the way, and it was unbelievable. They kept coming, and it was like, wow, we are meeting a need here. And we still are very proud that we're doing that. We have open access, which means any family can come, no matter what their economic status is. They just provide some proof of getting public support, CalFresh, something like that, and they get a membership. So that has always been an enduring.
Yeah, so
please
interestingly,
join in. Yes.
Yep, 31.6% of all museum visits in 2025 were actually subsidized. Just $10,000 actually covers 1/6 of all of our subsidized.
So this
visits.
is Emily speaking. I just wanted to share her.
Oh,
Your name
sorry,
is,
guys.
there's a
Sorry,
lot
this
of
is
hair,
Emily
yeah.
Jacobson. I'm
Right.
the current chair of the board.
Yeah, so
the
can
mod.
so that's fantastic. Can you share that one more time?
Yeah, so over about a third of all visits to the mod are subsidized as of today, like Patrice was saying, with, just proof of your status. And with just $10,000 donation, that covers 1/6 of all those visits.
Right. And it's really exciting because I'm sure people with means can subsidize their children's activities with after school programming. So the mod really serves a niche for the underserved in our communities who may feel intimidated to reach out. And here you guys provide 1/3. That's fantastic. Bonnie Keet.
One of the things that I was really excited about when we did end up at the mall was that we would be addressing the fact that there was a gap between, in the wealth disparity in our community. And the position of the museum in the mall was really able to help give the kids who would go to the mall for entertainment. There was public transportation. They would go there with their families. They would play on the structures at the food court and wander around the mall with their parents. What the museum did early on was to start to create a scholarship program. And that's what Emily is talking to you about right now, is that anyone who can get themselves to the mall and wants to go into the museum to have those kinds of enriching experiences, to participate in the science programs, to experience the learning, they can have a scholarship if they can't afford to go there. And that's something that MAUD has consistently done since it opened, through a series of grants, and other donors who have made sure that we've always had those scholarships. That's one of the things that when people donate to the museum, their money will go to make sure that kids who don't have this kind of enrichment in their lives get these experiences and start to equalize and close that gap between those who have and those who do not have.
Right, because the museum is really encouraging, you guys talk about sensory processing, science, language, art, music, right? There's so tactile things. And so, Heaven, so you're a youngster and you had some early experiences at the mod, and I don't know what the age range is for your clients. And I know you look in your 20s, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so here's Heaven.
Yes, I'm 21.
21.
I started volunteering at the museum right when it opened, actually. I lived with my grandparents, Bob and Patrice, and they were kind of like the opening to that world for me. So I started volunteering the second that I could. And then once I got my worker's permit at 15 years old, I began working at the museum and then became a floor manager when I was around 17, I want to say. And this is the best job that I've ever had. I love the museum. It's part of me. It's part of my childhood. I've watched insane things. Not only have I been able to grow, but I've seen so many people from our community grow as well. And like Patrice was mentioning earlier, we have, I think what differentiates us from other museums is we have that community foundation. So we know our regulars by name. And that's something that I love so much. I see a family come in, oh, hey, friends, how are you? And we have such a big range. We see people from, you know, families with infants to neurodivergent children to as old as, I've seen people as old as 13 have fun in the museum. I've had fun in the museum at like 15. I'm sure if I went in there, I could find something that I loved. So yeah, it's been a great experience to be able to be along with that and see it grow and flourish to what it is right now.
That is amazing. So you must see children who may not naturally navigate toward a certain thing, and then maybe in the museum, because there's so many experiences to be had, you might turn a kid on to nature or something that they might not have exposure to, right? So it's a real multi-dimensional place, right?
Yes, it is.
I think that's fantastic. And what about the parents? I know you guys have a parent nest, and supporting parents, especially with young children, is really important for, I'm just saying, the parent mental health.
Absolutely.
Right? Like parents need other parents so they don't lose their minds. So that's another fabulous thing the mod provides for our community members, young parents.
Absolutely. Imagine yourself, you're maybe a single parent, you live in a small apartment, you may have a couple of young children, preschool age or young latency age, and you have no place for them to play. So you go to a park and it may be raining. So what do you do with your child? The museum meets that need. So we have many people that come in during inclement weather. And in fact, last month, although it wasn't all that rainy, we had 5,000 people in just the month of November. So our average is around something more than 50,000 a year.
It sounds like a big number because we have, I think Santa Cruz is the second smallest county in California.
Really?
So, yeah. So the fact that you're driving that many people to your museum really says something, that we need enrichment programs in Santa Cruz, California.
Yes.
Right. And so this is part of our giving campaign here in Santa Cruz. So I want to encourage everybody to support the Santa Cruz Museum of Discovery because clearly they are doing some really neat things. And I know I visited before and I just want to go there and play. I just do.
That's great.
I think we need a parent or a friend night so I can get in. Okay, you guys have a lot to share. Please jump in. Bonnie.
Oh, I wanted to speak a little bit about the parent connection, and then we're going to go over to Emily.
Okay.
I pulled up a letter that Patrice had received in 2019 from a mom, Jan Parker, who was visiting the museum. She took a minute to write to say, "Hi, Patrice. So nice to see you today. We love Maud. I watch two of my grandkids, ages 2 and 4, in San Jose 2 days a week, and I brought them over to Maud in December. Ava, the older one, started playing with another little girl at Maud. Her mom and I started talking, and we decided to share phone numbers in hopes of meeting up with the girls at Maud another time. Today was that day. We drove from Watsonville, They drove from Watsonville, and we drove from San Jose, and we met up at Maud. The 4-year-olds hugged each other immediately and set off to explore, chat, play, and learn. Although my grandkids live about 15 minutes from the San Jose Museum of Discovery, and we go there often, there's something really special about Maud that makes the drive worthwhile. Thank you for all your work that goes into making this such an appropriate, magical, friendly place for families to meet and be together.
Thank you for that, Bonnie.
That's
a
fantastic.
nice memory.
That's so great.
We've always had wonderful feedback, and we have always offered parent classes, so to speak, in a more informal setting rather than sign up and pay or whatever. So we have had all different topics, sibling rivalry, growth and development, stages of development, and parents have bonded, like Bonnie just noted, and many of them, we see them come in together. We see lots of dads with their children, and very interactive. The museum is all about interaction. Although children can come in and do whatever they want to, and parents get a little respite, or they can interact with their child. It's a free kind of space like that.
Emily, tell us about
I wanted to jump in with something. Actually, I was just there at the museum earlier today with my daughter. We were playing in the beautiful new interactive Enchanted Forest space. And then what we have, speaking of Digital Nest, earlier, we partnered with Digital Nest, got an intern from them earlier this year to create an interactive AI drawing. So it brings children's drawings to life through AI. So my daughter likes art. We were playing, she was drawing. But on the parent education side, there are little images with words telling you how to talk and interact with your child for what's happening here. So not only are they drawing, but here's how the AI is looking at your arms and legs to animate those on the screen. So you could describe to your child what's happening. They can ask better questions. My 3-year-old and I had this great conversation about it. So not only are there larger resources for parents in the space, but resources for parents to talk with their kids and engage in that play-based learning, which is so critical and foundational to the mod.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's fascinating. I guess the world of AI is upon us, so why not embrace it and use it to our advantages, right? Heaven, what do you have to say?
Yeah, and I was also a nanny for a while. So one of my favorite things, it's raining outside, like Patrice was saying, I have nowhere to take them. I got an infant and a toddler. I can't look at them, I can't entertain them both at the same time. So what do I do now? I brought them to the museum, and she was in that why toddler phase. And I'm like, oh, how do I explain this? You look at every single exhibit, and it tells you exactly what it does, why it does it, and how it helps. So I love that it's informative. You know exactly what you're talking about, and you're not just, pulling things out of thin air to hopefully explain to your kid what's going on.
I really like that because all parents come into their parenting journey with their own set of skills. So this is reinforcing the parent's ability to share knowledge with their child if they didn't have that knowledge themselves.
And as a grandparent,
And they get to learn.
Yes. And sometimes we see so many grandparents in there with their children, the grandchildren, and they are often saying to me, I was executive director for the first 5 years, and they would say, oh, I wish that this had existed when my children were young. I would have loved this, but now my grandchildren are loving it. And sometimes grandparents they've been that far away from that developmental stage of kids, so they don't quite know what to do. So the museum helps structure that experience with them. And that's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, that's so neat. So, of course, parents, grandparents, friends are making friends there in this place. What are some of the favorite exhibits? And then I wanted to hear maybe a flop or two. Were there any exhibits like, that didn't go over well, we're not going to do that again?
Oh, wow. We found out that kids are very brutal with exhibits, and Heaven can attest to that. So they've broken everything from microscopes to pretty much anything that we would put in front of them. So it's been an iterative process of having, number one, safe exhibits and interesting exhibits that do not require too much maintenance. We have some wonderful people that come in and volunteer and help us on maintenance. But it is a challenge. I would say one of the favorite exhibits, and we put it in as we were opening, was an air wall. And you put in scarves or some piece of fabric, and there's a blower that blows it all through. What would look like piping in your house, but large piping, and comes out the other end. And kids are fascinated with, oh, here it is again. We just upgraded that to go along the ceiling and in other parts of it. So I'd say that was always been a really popular one.
And a funny thing about that exhibit is that when it was first put in, of course, being a fundraiser, my perspective was, let's have them put in dollars and fives and tens and 20s. And Bob and Patrice, of course, being a little kinder and really wanting everyone to have access, used the scarves.
Well, when we had fundraisers and events at the museum, and the museum is available for adult events, and we've had some there, and it's really fun. It kind of breaks down the barrier of if it like a corporate event, or even I've held 3 birthday parties for myself there, and it's just a fun place to be. But another, I'd say a favorite exhibit would be the racetrack, which my husband claims he built for $75, and it has lasted and lasted. Kids make their own little cars, race down the track, and he's upgraded it to include a tester at the end where, digitally you'll see how fast your car is going. So we're always looking for the next interesting thing. I don't know if Bonnie can remember any flops.
I want to hear more, but hold on, folks. We will be right back after this quick commercial break. So we are with the Santa Cruz Museum of Discovery, and we're doing a fundraiser with the Santa Cruz Gives. I'm your host, Jill Trotterman of Feeding the Family. Okay, everybody, we are back. I am Jill Trotterman, your host of Feeding the Family. We're streaming from SantaCruzVoice.com. So we're talking with the folks from the Museum of Discovery in Santa Cruz, California. And I'm just really excited to learn about these exhibits they're putting on. So we've been having some fun with some successful ones. And we've got Patrice, Keet, Bonnie Keet, Heaven Reagan, and Emily
Jacobson.
Sorry, I forgot to write that down. She's a board member. Please forgive me. Okay, so let's hear some more. We were talking about some really fun exhibits.
When we first started the museum, Patrice mentioned that we had a van, and it was considered more of a pop-up. We were searching for locations, but of course, once you find a location, then you have to discuss in much more depth how you're going to do a capacity campaign. Are we going to build something from scratch? Are we going to be donated a space? The city of Capitola was very good about working with us and trying to find spaces within their community. We looked all around, from Watsonville all the way to Ben Lomond. What would be the best space to hold a museum? So in the beginning, Bob and Patrice, their approach is, let's have a concept. Let's get out there in the world and show them what we can do and what we are. So we started with a pop-up museum, and one of the first things that we did, Patrice and I had gone to that conference in Pittsburgh where we had a great time. One of the things that one of the vendors was selling was something called this imagination playground, and it was these big blue blocks that kids could pick up and manipulate, and they could build anything they wanted. So it was pretty pricey for us, but we raised the money for it. I think it was
$2,000.
$2,000. That felt like a lot at the time. We raised the money for it, and then we were able to purchase that, and we had. The first thing that we did was have this really fun community party on November the 1st at Holy Cross Church in 2013. And we took that imagination playground and we set it up, and we had people do sort of a Rube Goldberg kind of game where they would make contraptions, and there was a big contest to see whose contraption was the best and which one worked the best. Miguel Aznar was hugely helpful on that, setting up different science exhibits at all the different tables. It was really a fun evening. I actually printed out the flyer from it and we had celebrity bartenders, which was really fun. Our bartenders at the time were the mayor, Hillary Bryant, Penny Ice Creamery owner, Kendra Baker, a singer-songwriter, Keith Greninger, surf celebrity Wingnut, and then local, we like to call them glitterati's, our impressive friends, Margaret Leonard and Claire Shields, and our city councilman, David Terrazas. So we set up this imagination playground, and then the funny thing about that was a great night, great evening. Then we had the interns and volunteers take it around to schools and to different pop-up opportunities. But it was really funny watching these interns who would tend to have smaller cars because they're just starting out in the world, trying to fit this big, huge apparatus into their little Vespas, onto the back of their Vespas and into their little
Bikes.
Golfs and things like that. It was really amusing. It's still, I think, one of your iconic exhibits, right? People still
It's
love
still
it,
at the
use it.
museum, correct?
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
big
it's
blue
still
blocks.
there. I mean, I've talked about maybe fundraising for a replacement set. I'm just going to say it's probably more in the realm of $5,000 now.
No, it's 10 to 15.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I just mentioned to Rhiannon, our director, I said, they're wonderful. They're so well used. They might be, getting eventually
they're getting
overused.
a little long in the tooth.
Well, I'm sure these exhibits are costly, right?
my
I mean,
gosh.
with the materials and the installation, and maybe if you got electricity involved.
You wouldn't
Right?
believe it. You wouldn't believe it. I think
Right.
Bonnie was headed toward the story of this expert that we had come, who will remain unnamed, but a wonderful guy that came and stayed at our house, nationally known, and started talking about exhibit costs. And Bonnie, do you remember what he said? Exhibits would be
It was in the $100,000 range.
yeah per like square foot of the what the exhibit took.
So to design them, to do the fabrication, the manufacturing, and the installation, a single exhibit, it would have been easy $20,000. And honestly, Bob and Patrice just don't work that way. They are really hands-on people who are going to make something happen. And there was, the Exploratorium was really, up in San Francisco, was a museum that we looked to quite often. Bob and Patrice had spent a lot of time there. They were very familiar with something called the cookbooks.
Right. Oh, that's right. The cookbooks. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that, please.
The cookbooks. Yeah, that was how to make exhibits. And man, maybe we ought to pull those out again.
Yeah.
Wow. But anyway, feedback.
You got it.
Okay, good. I was hearing a little feedback. I'm not sure if it's me.
Ah.
Anyway, the cookbooks were very helpful. Exploratorium is interesting to bring up because we had thought that we would create an exploratorium in Santa Cruz, a small one, and that would be a certain age group, older kids as well. And as soon as we started thinking more about that and talking more to the community, we realized older kids are in school all day. Mm-hmm. After school, they're doing their sports, their other activities. So we had to really pivot. And I am very proud of us that we were able to pivot and now have, I would say our target is 0, infants to 7, 8. A little bit older can come in and find things to do. But that may change over time.
So around 8 years old, you're saying that's kind of like where it's peaking a little bit for the museum kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
but the cost was, we never could have started even with what we were told. And we said, well, thank you for visiting. And it was nice to have you here, but we're on a different track. We're on the make it happen. And we've brought in now we have a wonderful team of a couple of builders who are very dedicated. My husband got involved with woodworkers, and they meet and talk about what would be good exhibits. And now we're working on even more educational content for the exhibits. But it's different than other museums, right?
It is. I'd say, speaking of, I think, hit it out at the park exhibits, we just completed and launched this past summer our interactive Enchanted Forest, and that truly was a huge community building moment. We had the woodworkers, volunteer woodworkers, like Patrice was mentioning. We had our part-time staff that we found out, the wonderful people that have like our artist backgrounds that have painted these beautiful waterfalls. Our full-time staff, Jamie, spent countless nights, late nights working on this exhibit. Paige was really all hands on deck. Almost every board member had their hands in it, creating these beautiful handcrafted flowers that hang from the ceiling to create this really amazing, magical space for kids that, they can climb. There's this huge hobbit hole hill that kids can now climb and throw. The air wall that Patrice was mentioning now goes over and through the forest. It's really cool how many people come together to build these exhibits.
Yeah, and it sounds like you'll have an exhibit and it expands, and you can tweak it and morph it and I guess embed it into other exhibits. So the Enchanted Forest, so that's your very special exhibit that you just put on. So there's climbing and caves that they can go through and tactile things.
Very tactile too. Kids can slide down it. A fun exhibit that we had sponsored through a local business, which I'd also like to put out here on the air. Pizza My Heart initially sponsored our little pizza area, a little pizza shop. So we have a little pizza oven that we build, fake, of course, but we have the black and white tiled floor and retro banquets, little seating and fake food to make pizzas. So we encourage local businesses to come to us for sponsorship and help us add ideas of what could be synergistic together.
Right. Are there? Yes. Share with us, please.
Yeah, another fan favorite and one of my personal favorites is the Eco House. So it is a great exhibit for all kinds of different play. A lot of kids love it for pretend play, like imaginary play, fake washing dishes, things like that. But it also has that educational aspect of it that the museum is known for, where it shows children easy ways and individual ways to live sustainably. So it's not this crazy, no using chewing gum, plastic straws, things like that. It's just very simple. How do I recycle better, or what decomposes and what doesn't, things like that. So kids really love that exhibit a lot.
That's neat. And so are there staff on the floor that interact with the children or the parents there, or do you sometimes have to ask the parents to step away from the air wall? No. Put the Legos down. I don't even know if you guys have Legos. Is that too...
We do have Legos.
You do have Legos,
yes.
Okay.
There are always employees on the floor.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite jobs, is to go out on the floor and interact with children. Now, there are some parents who want to be super hands-on. I want to play with my kid. I want to teach my kid this and that and stuff like that. But they're always open to knowing that our professional staff are there to help assist, explain things, get your kids to go beyond what they already know and try something new. And that's super fun. So we can get kids to play with exhibits that they may look at and think, oh, that's a little intimidating, or I have no idea how that exhibit works. And a lot of parents will walk up to us too and say, how do I use this exhibit? And, oh, here, let me show you. And then the child sees the parent playing with it. They're like, I want to play with that too. So, yeah.
Okay, neat. Patrice?
We also have birthday parties, which are a big part of our revenue.
Excellent.
And often we're subscribed months in advance. And birthday parties they can be themed. So for a little higher fee, there can be the volcano or the whole science.
Liquid nitrogen ice cream you can do. There's a slime party. I'm going to. One of my son's little friends is hosting a slime party at the Mod on Saturday that I'm going to.
Oh, cool. Good. It's great to hear the real things that are happening on a day-to-day basis.
Over 100 birthday parties happened in 2025 at the
Really?
Mod for over 1,000 families.
That's nuts. That's amazing.
And
Who wouldn't want to have a party there?
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
I want to
great.
have my next party there.
Our executive
That sounds like
director,
great.
Rhiannon Crane, was one of our original board members and is now the executive director. And I think she tries to sew a little bit of science and learning into even the birthday parties, so that liquid nitrogen ice cream and the slime, this all comes from having a leader like Rhiannon who's always thinking, what is the most outrageous way we can teach these kids something really cool. She's like a really smart, intelligent kid at heart. She's the coolest executive director.
And she has a PhD in museum science.
Really? That's
Museum,
even
yeah.
a thing?
Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah, and we have science Saturdays, and we also have special events like we have a teddy bear clinic
What?
to demystify the medical experience for children.
Okay.
And especially right after COVID with vaccines. And so they get to go there and play with a stuffed animal and see that it might not be as scary.
Yeah, Zoom
Real
Honk
life.
Smash. Zoom Honk Smash is another exhibit that Rhiannon brought science into, physics into.
Oh, is that a car thing?
It was. We had our first inaugural event this October, late October. We had big cranes, fire trucks, tractors, every sort of truck you can possibly imagine. And you could sponsor a pumpkin, and people sponsored pumpkins. We brought them up in cranes, and we had them thrown from the crane. So you could learn about physics and what happens when pumpkins fall from high spots.
Wow. There's like an endless amount of things, I think, right?
We might have had 4,000 people.
We did. We had 3,000 to 4,000 attendees there
Yeah.
this year for our very first
Outside
one.
in the Capitola Mall parking lot.
Okay. And I want to hear about future stuff. I know we have got about 10 more minutes to explore.
Oh, I want to tell
future things.
one of the things I thought was the coolest things that Rhiannon and the board put together. They did a whole pitch entrepreneurial thing for kids where they came up with their own inventions and they learned how to pitch a product to a group of judges, and then they got mentoring input on what they were creating, how they were going to bring it to market, how they were going to brand it, how they were going to monetize it. I mean, these are kids learning how to be our next generation of creators. And the museum did all that. The Santa Cruz Children's Museum of Discovery. I mean, come on.
And then there was an entrepreneurial fair, and I went and spent a bunch of money supporting these wonderful little kids with everything from homemade soap to bath salts to very creative photography. I mean, it was wonderful. We had a huge number of attendees and just kids purveyors selling their things.
Yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. Do kids come up with their own ideas for exhibits? Do they ever have like a suggestion box?
Oh, that was something really fun that we did in the very beginning. We had a children's advisory board, and we thought we were very clever with this idea. It went on alongside the board for quite a while, and that was one of the ways that we were able to pinpoint what our target audience should be. That was really hard in the beginning to figure out how much you would stretch yourself, and like Patrice mentioned, the ages of the attendees. The early Child's Advisory Board was always very interesting, and they always gave us a lot of good input, and they had great snacks at their meetings.
That is great.
I'm kind of wondering what did you have any aha moments as you were being a staff member?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Rhiannon and her family are very dear to my heart. They taught me a lot of things that I learned when I was probably like 16 years old, and I still carry with me through college and all of that. But I think one of the best things, going back to the liquid nitrogen that ice cream that we had talked about previously, that was something that even I was like, Rhiannon, what are you doing? Like, how is this going to work? She showed me it, and I never stopped making it. Every single birthday party where they were like, oh, we want the liquid nitrogen one, I was like, I will be there. I am on it. And at the time, I was still in high school. I was a cheerleader at the time. I would miss my games just to go to that.
So it's like a live food lab.
Yes.
But with cool ice cream and liquid nitrogen.
Yes.
Right.
And then you had previously asked for like an exhibit that was a little trial and error.
Yes.
That's the slime one right there.
Oh, yeah.
Surprisingly, slime is a lot harder to make than you think it is. It's very easy to overactivate it. So me and Rhiannon spent about 2 hours before a birthday party making slime together. And it was over and over again. I was trying super hard to we were like, oh, we need to put this amount in it. And she was like, no, I think that this is going to work better. And it was just back and forth. It was a great bonding experience, but slime is really hard to make, and then teaching it to children is even harder.
So you were the guinea pigs for Slime Week at the fair.
Yes, I was. Oh,
that's amazing. Yeah, we had 15,000 kids come through our booth at the fair, the Santa Cruz County Fair, this past summer, making slime in the slime bar.
Wow.
I want to point out that we've had some amazing volunteers, and 2 of them show up every single week to set up art activities, and they have since we started. Terry Grove and Sue Cresswell, they show up, they set out creative activities for kids, and talk about faithful. Wow.
I also wanted to be sure we mentioned some of our longest running board members. You've had some people at the museum that have stuck with us since, I don't know, for a decade now. I know Jim's been there for a really long time.
And Vicky Boryak.
Vicky and Seb Fry was a long-standing board member. Seth Reeder and Margaret, forget Margaret's last name, but she was with the board for a long time.
That's one of the things, Bonnie, throughout this whole conversation that you guys keep sharing all these names from our community. That's really hitting home right now, is how important community is to make an endeavor like this. You could come up with all the crazy fun ideas you want, but unless we have the community and the builders and the people who are coming in to make it happen, it's really quite an effort. And you guys like inspired it.
Someone like Emily who's going to lead us.
Right? But clearly it came from Patrice and Bonnie as the founders and Bob, right? So really kudos to you guys, really. It's such an impressive work that you've created.
You know, since I'm not involved in the day-to-day, I'd really like to hear where the museum is headed. I know there's a lot of talk about the future, the location. So I'd like to know a little bit about what's going to happen next for the museum, and also where the fundraising opportunities are. I think a lot of your listeners and a lot of the businesses in the community want to know how to step up and sponsor and become a part of what happens to close that gap between kids who don't have access and kids who do.
Yes, this is important. We only have got a few more minutes left. And so share with us, where should people send the checks? We want to know.
Great. So, first I'll get to what's our vision for the future. Please. We really have 3 key focus areas.
Okay.
One is to strengthen that educational programming and build a rigorous educational master plan. We have the in-person museum. We have our mobile science program. We go out to schools to do auditorium, what are they called? Programs, to do things like that. So how are we really putting together comprehensive assemblies? There we go. That's the word I was looking for.
I'm like, I know it's coming to us. We all knew it.
So really looking to come up with that comprehensive educational programming. Right. Then the second piece is to really look at expanding that access for everyone we were talking about earlier. And so that's a really critical piece of where all of our donations go to for the museum, is making sure everyone has that access to interactive learning and learning through play. Then that third piece is, where's that museum long-term going to go? So we are pursuing long-term plans to secure a permanent home that reflects the importance that we have to families and early learning in Santa Cruz County. So that's ongoing currently. That's a really big piece of what the board is focused on, I'd say, over the next 5 to 10 years.
I see. For people who are not from Santa Cruz, I think you're in the mall, so the mall's not in great shape, and there's
although they're signing new rental
leases.
Oh, good. I wanted
all the
to
time.
stay.
But they have been sold, and they were sold, I believe, 4 years ago. I've been to a couple of community meetings to find out about the future, but they're mainly trying to comply with housing issues. And so they're talking about having housing in place of where the museum is now. So eventually, we're a little up in the air about where we will be.
Mm-hmm. So we want a permanent home that we can do. So then how do we support that? I think the number one way, the best, is just visit. The support of coming to the museum brings in dollars. Becoming a member or gifting a membership. I think those are really easy, accessible ways for people to give back to the museum. Okay. And then there's donating or sponsoring a program. And that is, if you go to our website, the Santa Cruz Museum of Discovery, you can find out the information there of how to donate. You can donate through Santa Cruz Gives as well, through the Santa Cruz Gives campaign. And that's where I gave my donation to this year. And again, can be from $10. I think I mentioned, it can go high. Like I mentioned earlier, $10,000 support covers 1/6 of all of our subsidized visits for people. That massive exhibit we just completed was $27,000. Mm-hmm. So we are the most visited museum in Santa Cruz County with one of the lowest budgets. So we get a big bang for your buck.
Right. Well, I'm excited to learn about I'm excited that I got to learn about the history, and I'm really excited to see where the museum lands in the future. Because clearly it's been led by a brilliant team, and I see a great, beautiful, shining future for this museum. It's really inspirational. Yes?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, and thanks to all your listeners for letting us spend an hour with you to talk about this great enrichment opportunity for kids in Santa Cruz County.
Yeah, you are totally welcome. Well, thank you so much for all of you folks for being
Thank you
here.
for what you're doing for the community.
Thank you, Patrice. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. It was so great being here.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
You are so welcome. Well, again, I am Jill Trotterman with Feeding the Family. We're streaming from Santa Cruz Voice, and this is our annual giving campaign for nonprofits in Santa Cruz, California. So please be generous, because you could see the talent that this group here is bringing to our community, and we want to support a great, thriving community. It makes the world a better place, and that is my mission, to make the world a better place. So I'll be signing out. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next time.